everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, you got me not on camera because I'm trying to fit this around other things. I am so excited today, everybody, because today we broke up from school. We got to finish the day early. For those of you who don't know it, in the Middle East, you don't usually have an autumn break in, like the week off you usually have in autumn and spring. You don't usually get that in the first term. So we've had about 17 weeks solid. It's been a lot. So I am very, very glad to have made it to my Christmas holidays. It's currently the 22nd. This should go up today, so you should know that. But I'm not pre-filming this or anything. I'm actually running quite late, and I do apologise. I do get paid, as you know, in the middle of the month usually. But I was a little bit late getting this up and ready because I was just so busy with the end of term. I didn't get a chance. So some of the things that I'm putting in as projected costs here, a lot of the things I've actually already started paying where it's a fixed bill, either in my local or my international account. So you're going to see a lot of that, and I can explain my thought process a little bit to you. So let's get going. I have actually got a printed sheet here somewhere. So we're going to begin right here with my local money. My salary was as expected, plus the 20 rial allowance for utilities, minus the 7 charge for laundry. Oh, I had a bit of a back and forth with the laundry this month. They lost a whole load that I had sent to them. Fortunately, I've managed to track it down. Like, most of it was school issues, so they could replace it, but some of it was my own stuff. And I was like, we need to find this, thank you. But it was a little bit stressful. But that means my income is just the same. And we're going to go, the spending is going to populate as we go through. So I have a fixed bill for my home internet. Let's go to projected costs, even though it's going to be the same because I've already paid these. If it's less than the rounded amount, like it's 36 point something, but I can't be bothered with that. So I'm just saying 37, and that's how much I paid. Electricity, when I checked my meter this time around, I still had about 12 rial on it, and I generally spend between 12 and 15 in a month. So I've just put on an extra 5 this time around, and I'll update it if I end up needing more, but I don't think I will. And if you watched my last video, I mentioned that the cleaner had come on the day I got paid, and I ended up having to take 10 out of my previous budget for her. So I should just be paying her 10 this time, depending on how it falls this time around. Because, as I say, I'm never sure exactly which day I'm getting paid. It just depends how it falls in the calendar. So I don't have much control about that. But I'm just going to put 10 in for now, because I don't think more will come out. For projected groceries, I put in 120. Transport last time I put down to 20, but then I found myself struggling a little bit with it. So I think I'm going to put it back up to 30. Everything's an experiment in the end, and we'll see how I do with that. But particularly as I'm on holiday now, I might be taking a few more taxis to do things. So it's better to have something ready. But on the balance of that, I'm not in school for a couple of weeks now. So instead of putting 20 towards school, I'm just going to put 10 because I'm there half the time. So that kind of evens each other out, you know. Beauty and health, I'm just putting 20 in this time. I haven't got any plans to buy any makeup, and hopefully we'll just go through 1 month when I don't get sick. Wouldn't that be lovely? Everybody, knock wood, turn around 3 times and spit for me. For Miss Comb, I'm putting in 10 as I usually do, even though the concept of a usual month doesn't really exist. Eating out and delivery, I'm lowering it. The people who usually do the meals are actually traveling, so they won't be here, and I challenged myself not to use a takeout delivery app for a year, so I'm not going to order from that. However, if I'm in a mall or something like that and I stop to have dinner, so I'm eating out in that sense, then I want to have a little bit of money there. So last month, because I ended up needing to balance how much I'd spent on Christmas decorations, I cancelled it completely, and I did fine with that, so there's no reason to worry. Spending gets 25, though I do actually have a little bit of extra spending this month. which we'll talk about in a second. Clothing's getting 25 right here. And now we have this category. This category is Christmas. I did talk to you about buying decorations and having to pull from other categories, but when I made this budget, I actually did have plans to go to one of the fancy hotels here and to have like an afternoon tea or do some kind of meal with a friend of mine. Now that has since fallen through because my friend's actually got her family visiting and it's been a bit more expensive than she was anticipating. So she doesn't, she wants to go, but she can't justify the cost of it as an extra treat when she's already spending so much, which I can understand. You know, I'm a budgeter, I can understand. But I want to put a little bit of money aside so if I make other plans or if I just decide to do something, because I'm by myself this Christmas and I'd maybe like to go out and just not have to think too hard and treat myself a little bit. Haven't decided how or what yet. It might just end up being a day in the mall or what have you, but I'm putting 40 Rial aside just so I can have a little bit of liquidity there and just not have to worry about it. If I go and spend something, it shouldn't be stressful. I don't live that close to the bone, you know? So I just want to have a little bit more fun money there for the Christmas season. So that brings me to a total for my fixed and variable expenses locally of 342. And when we go back up to here, that means this has now populated and I will be sending home 971. Now, in terms of actual costs, I did go into Nesto, which is another supermarket we have here, the other day, and I spent 11 Rial. But everything else, my friend took me there because she was going, she just asked, it's my next door neighbour, and she asked, look, do I need anything? Because I'm on my way. So I didn't have to pay transport for that. And I haven't paid anything else out of any of these categories. So that's where we are right now, because when I made this, I was working quite hard at school, so I haven't had a chance to actually go anywhere yet. So let's go over to the home side of the budget. And I tell you, I was a little bit sad. This is just sort of the nature of the beast when it comes to working in two currencies. You are obviously very open to any shifts in the exchange rate. And this time I sent home 971 Rial, which if we go back to my November budget, was 61 Rial more than I sent home last month. But last month I got over £2,000 for it. And this month I got 1,986. So that's quite a big shift considering I actually sent a decent amount more home. Makes me a little bit sad. But there we are. Things happen that way, and it is unfortunately just how things work. With the extra income, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. So I ended up getting about 655 from the side hustle, but there's obviously more in there now. So I used to have an account in my fixed bills that was a little savings account, but I hadn't put anything in it, and I ended up shutting it. So they finally transferred over the balance that was in there. There wasn't much, there was just over 300, but it means that I received it this month and it hadn't been accounted for elsewhere at any other time. So I've just sort of had to put it into extra income, even though technically it wasn't extra income. You know, there's not much I can do about that, but it seemed the most sensible way to count it, even though I don't technically have a category for that. It's quite nuanced. So it was a transfer rather than income, but as it was new money, essentially, it was better to count it that way. I've pre-filled in some of my costs here because I don't change them very often. There is one small change here because I hadn't accounted for something. So I wear a wig. I have trichotillomania. I've worn a wig for quite a while. And I bought a supply with me when I came here because it's sometimes hard to find a supplier. So I brought some with me and I didn't realize that I only had a couple left. And now I have to order them in, but unfortunately the people who sell the wig I wear don't ship here. So now I'm having to go through the experiment process of finding a new one, which basically means that I have to order a few that are available to be delivered here. I have to try them, see which ones I like, and then order a supply of them from whichever one I decide on. And that can be a tad expensive because you have to buy a few, you have to make that decision. So I hadn't accounted for that expenditure because I had just kind of assumed at some point I would go home. I was thinking I'd go home for Christmas at one point, and then it was going to be quite a cost, and I didn't realize how late we broke up here. And my family are actually ended up going to America anyway, which is just too far and too expensive for the timing, because it's already the 22nd and I've only just finished. And I just can't imagine doing a massive international flight to try and get anywhere that celebrates Christmas, because everything gets so difficult in terms of logistics around the holidays. And I just didn't want to do that on Christmas Eve and potentially mess up everyone else's Christmas if there was a delay, you know? But the point of that little side story was I thought I would go back to the UK at one point and then I could just have the wigs delivered to me there and bring them back over, and it didn't end up happening that way. So I've just put in from the extra income here, because I hadn't really accounted for that when I was making this. I have put 200 into other spending just to help me with that process, and I did one order yesterday, so I've already spent some. It was actually slightly more expensive than this, but I have put it onto my credit card because randomly my credit card had a positive balance on it that I needed to use up. I didn't like it sitting there, so I saved a little bit of money by doing that because I had this random refund or whatever it was. It wasn't much. It started out as £20. I bought a couple of ebooks. I think I had £16 on there. Oddly though, because I ended up ordering from Amazon.com because the availability to send it here was just better, they are really slow when it comes to posting a cost on your credit card. And I always notice this when I order from Amazon.com. It's slower than the other sites, because I got a notice today saying it was shipped and it hasn't shown up on my bill yet. But as soon as it shows up on my bill, I do obviously have this money in extra income sitting and waiting, and I will pay off the credit card in full. But for now, I'm just going through that process. When we come down here, I was going to say this is just a transfer to a savings fund. I think they've already taken it now, so actual cost 150. That doesn't change. All of these are subscriptions, the 10, the 3, the 9, and they have all been transferred into this account. So they are gone as far as I am concerned, even though you can see the dates change on when they're actually due. My pension, I did pay 800 into, and that's fine. When we go down here, we have had a couple of changes in the short, medium, long-term savings. My emergency fund, I put in a bit of a weird number last time because I wanted to round it up to 1,000. I want a bigger emergency fund. My outgoings are quite low, as you've seen from the local side of my things, but I do want an emergency fund in place, but I'm doing it a little bit slower because I feel like if it came to it and I did have an actual emergency, I do have money in sinking funds that I could pull out. I do have other options, so it's not as urgent as me having absolutely nothing, but it's something I want to build as I go. I don't want to prioritize it over other financial goals of mine, but I do want to take care of it. So I'm transferring in probably 250 a month, but I may end up topping up with any extra income at different times. And taxes have now been paid off for the current year that I owed has been paid off, and what I'd actually been working towards were the payments on account for next year's taxes. Now, I think my payments on account might be estimating a little low. I'm basically, how it works in the UK, you pay your current taxes January 31st, and you pay half of the estimated taxes for the next one also on January 31st. So it's a bit of a lump sum. And then you pay the other half ready for next time on July, I think, in July. I can't exactly remember the date, but it's around there, maybe the end of June. It's the middle of the year. So everything for that is now prepaid, but because I think it might be a little bit low, I'm going to put in 100 a month, just so I've got a little bit extra if the estimate ends up being out. So that's just there ticking away, and it's absolutely fine. My sinking funds down here, they've all had the same amount put in, because all I do is I look down here and I say, okay, this account needs 778 there and 350 there. This account needs 822 to cover me. And then I take payments for whatever it is out of there. So I don't have to worry because that money is out of my main account, which is where I don't want to be spending it from really, because I want to know that everything in this account is essentially safe to spend. It doesn't have a purpose attached to it. So I have a bit of a buffer in there, but it's good to know it's there. So the rollover because of that transfer is reasonably large. I think it maybe hasn't accounted for the top one though. Let's see. J11 minus I44. Oh no, I'm wrong. It has accounted for the extra up here, which I wasn't sure if it had. I was looking for an extra 200, but actually no, I've technically only spent 55 right there. So just had to figure my life out with the actual costs right there. So I don't want to allocate all 800 to other things because obviously that's just based out of what I have spent. According to the projections, I've accounted for like 2,300, but I earned like almost 3,000, so 655-ish more, which is about what I got from YouTube. So that's what I've got to play with in terms of making further payments here, so I can top things up. The pension, the numbers, I checked them yesterday or the day before, and there was a bit of a drop down. I'm going to double check, but I could make an extra payment into there. I did, one thing I forgot to tell you, with Christmas, I had a bit of a weird payment here because I wanted to get this up to 100 because I remembered I had a couple of extra presents I hadn't accounted for, and I've now spent 50 of it because I've bought those 2 presents and I've got them sent off. So everything else is done. I might end up, I have national insurance contributions here for the gaps I have in my history. So given that I have an extra 600, I might end up splitting it between national insurance contributions here. So maybe we put in 500 instead of 250. Just do it like that. And then I think, do I want more in the emergency fund or do I want more in the pension? I think maybe I'll split it and just put 200 more into the emergency fund, and we'll put another 200 into the pension. And that should put us, the extra 159 is the 200 accounted for right here, because everything else is exactly what it should be. So that should keep me covered for everything and keep me within budget in terms of the fixed costs and things. So I'll make those transfers after I finish recording this, because I've literally just made that decision on the fly. And everything else is how you see it. So thank you so much for joining me. We'll see how the rest of this month goes. With me being on holiday, I've got less of a schedule, so it's always a bit interesting about how that goes and if it's for better or for worse, because do I get bored or do I just not spend anything because I don't bother going out and I just rest, relax and recuperate? I don't know. It can go either way. But like I said, I have counted in a little bit extra for Christmas. So even if I decide I do want to treat myself, I have got that little fund for myself there. I'm probably going to be filming a little year in review and kind of financial goals video for the next year and kind of see how things go. But other than that, I hope you're all good. Have a lovely holiday, everybody.